Welcome everyone to the 10th panel of the VII BRICS Conference. In this international security panel, we will be addressing topics related to diplomacy, international cooperation among BRICS countries. My name is Esther Pereira, and I'm going to moderate this panel. This panel will last for about 1 hour, with each of our 4 guests speaking for 15 to 20 minutes, and questions sent via YouTube chat will be asked by me at the end of our guest speeches. Before we begin, I would like to express gratitude to our sponsors, the Brazil-China Sociocultural Institute, Ibrachina, and Miguel Neto Advocacia. I would also like to thank our partners, LIDE China, the South African BRICS Youth Association, SABYA, and the Forum for Global Studies, FGS. This event is held by the Faculty of Law at International of the University of São Paulo. With me today, we have Bruno Pedrosa from Brazil, Manoj Singh, Rashmi Singh, and Sachin Kumar from India. Now, I would like to start the discussion with Dr. Rashmi Singh, whom is a professor in the postgraduate program in the International Relations at the Pontifical Catholic University, PUC Minas, Brazil. She holds a PhD in International Relations from the London School of Economics and Political Science, and is a co-founder and co-director of the Research Network on Terrorism, Radicalization, and Transnational Crimes, TRAC. Dr. Rashmi Singh will speak about the evolution of India's policy towards Israel and Palestine. You can start right now.
Thank you so much, Esther. I would like to first of all say good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're joining from, I guess, to everybody in our audience. I don't have much time, so let me just very quickly first thank my hosts for their very, very gracious invitation and for this opportunity to share with you some ideas on India's evolving foreign policy towards Israel and Palestine, and exactly why we are seeing what I see as a fairly significant shift with this recent war in Gaza. So let's start with the discussion of the war itself. I think after Hamas launched this very, very unprecedented attack on Israel from Gaza on the 7th of October, we saw some very interesting developments in terms of the reactions from the world. India as well was very, very clear in terms of its stance. So the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, first of all, very sharply condemned the Hamas attacks, and he almost immediately tweeted in support of the Israeli state. I quote, he said, "We stand in solidarity with Israel at this difficult hour. Our thoughts and prayers are with the innocent victims and their families." The Indian External Affairs Minister, Jaishankar, tweeted this message. And 3 days later, Mr. Modi had a conversation with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And again, after this conversation, he not only thanked Netanyahu for the conversation, he also added to his previous tweet, and he said, "India strongly and unequivocally condemns terrorism in all its forms and manifestations." It's worth noting that neither of Mr. Modi's statements referenced Gaza, referenced the people in Gaza, or expressed any kind of concentration or any concern for the plight of the Palestinians who are trapped in Gaza with the blockade for nearly 17 years, and after the beginning of the war, what has become a full blockade of everything, including water and food. It was only 5 days after this attack that India's MEA, or Ministry of External Affairs, actually released the first official statement about the war. And it stated that there is a universal obligation to observe international humanitarian law and a global responsibility to fight terrorism. And he also, the spokesperson for the MEA, also very clearly restated India's position on the wide Palestinian conflict, for direct relations, for a sovereign, independent, viable state for Palestine, living within secure and recognized borders, side by side at peace with Israel. And we saw this position held more or less as we move forward. By the time we get to the 18th of October, immediately in the aftermath of the El Ahli hospital blast, we again see Modi not pointing any kind of blame on Israel, tweeting general condolences, general concerns. And then on October 27th, India actually abstained with 44 other countries in the symbolic UN General Assembly resolution for a humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza. This was very strongly criticized by Sonia Gandhi in an open op-ed on the 30th of October. And in all of this, while it does not seem very significant, all of this together actually points to a very clear, although subtle shift in India's policy towards Israel. Now, it is worth pointing out that Modi's position has contrasted with positions of countries in the global south. It's also a split from India's normal or traditional position, both with the Indian National Congress and as well as previous BJP governments, for example, with Atal Bihari Vajpayee. One can even argue that this particular position in 2023 is very different from Modi's much more subtle position between the Israelis in 2021, where the UN ambassador, India's UN ambassador, very, very clearly made a much more balanced statement. So what we are seeing is, with these series of tweets from Modi being balanced and sort of kept on track by the MEA tweets and statements, is a very clear milestone in India's increasingly close ties with Israel. And I want to talk to you a little bit about this in a very historical perspective. I think we need to start, historically speaking, already pre-independence India. As far back as 1922, when, as part of its own decolonization process, India had a very clear position regarding mandatory Palestine and the position of the Balfour Declaration that was essentially claiming a national homeland for the Jews in Israel. And this position is very clearly a reflection of the debates that were happening between Jawaharlal Nehru, Jinnah, Maulana Azad. And in many ways, we can argue the partition of India and the partition of mandatory Palestine are very, very closely linked. And in this time, in this space, leaders such as Nehru could by no means support a partition of mandatory Palestine on religious grounds if the Congress were against partition in Indian territory itself. And so when in 1947, already 20-odd years down the line, when the United Nations General Assembly actually passed a resolution recommending the establishment of the state of Israel alongside a Palestinian state, what was a newly independent India at that point voted against this. Jawaharlal Nehru was our prime minister at that point. Mahatma Gandhi, as well as various other nationalists, were very, very clearly sympathetic to the Jewish cause. But at the same time, they were very vehemently opposed to a partition because essentially this was rooted in their own experience of partition. The partition of India and Pakistan had already happened. It had been followed by large-scale violence. And there was a very firm belief that the creation of a Jewish state would disenfranchise the Arab inhabitants in the region. And so what India actually proposed in 1947 was a federal arrangement with a majority of Arab states, but guarantees for minority religious rights for the Jewish population in what would have been a one-state solution. Except this was a minority vote in the United Nations General Assembly. The majority voted for partition, and therefore we saw the situation evolve as it is. Now, there were also various other pragmatic considerations that were shaping India's official position in the 1940s. Very substantial Muslim population within its borders. It is our largest minority at 14% at this point. And at that point in 1947, India could not afford to ignore Muslim sentiments, and any kind of overture towards Israel would have had adverse effects on what was a very, very fragile legitimacy of a new state. And it would have stirred more tension in between communities in India, which had already experienced the trauma of partition. And so there was that one very clear issue. But India was also very clearly presenting itself at this point under Nehru's leadership as a standard bearer against colonialism. And this was a very clear effort to demonstrate solidarity with newly decolonized states, not only in the Middle East, but also across Africa. In particular, the Arab states in the Middle East were also being courted by Pakistan. And so this was also an additional consideration, in addition to being a standard bearer for a post-colonial space. We also see that, that despite this initial lack of support for the creation of Israel, India actually formally recognized the state of Israel in 1950, although there were no diplomatic ties till 1992, so 42 years nearly without diplomatic ties. But at one point, Nehru essentially sent a to one of his ministers, arguing that Israel was a recognized international fact, and therefore India would recognize Israel as well. And in 1953, Israel opened a consulate in Mumbai. But with all of these developments, for much of the Cold War, what we actually see is that Indian-Israeli contacts were fairly limited. New Delhi still very clearly wanted to avoid alienating the Arab world. It wanted to appease the Muslim population at home. We have to remember that the Congress Party very clearly banked on the Indian Muslim vote bank to stay in power. And these were all factors that meant that it was only 1992 when India granted full diplomatic recognition to Israel. Now, it is worth mentioning that although India maintained a strong support for Palestine, it did not also have diplomatic relations with Palestinian entities. It was very, very circumspect about having diplomatic dealings with different representatives that existed of the Palestinian cause at this point. This was because India was not quite sure if these representatives were the sole and legitimate Palestinian representatives of the national cause, or they were actually instruments of other Arab nations who were using them to defend or develop their own national interests. And so India had a very clearly dynamic position. It was not cued either in one direction towards Israel or towards the Palestinian cause. It was very, very clearly balanced. This position started seeing a shift only in the 1970s. And this happened with closer relations forming between Yasser Arafat, the leader of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, and India. And as these relations developed in 1974, India became the first non-Arab country to recognize the PLO as the sole and legitimate representative of the Palestinian people. And the following year, in 75, a PLO office was actually set up in New Delhi. India was also the first non-Arab country to recognize the state of Palestine when it was proclaimed in 1988, around the time of the First Intifada. And so what we see is a very clear shift happening in Indian policy towards the 1970s. And as we move forward, we start seeing that there were various multilateral votes that were happening, even though India and Israel were maintaining fairly normalized ties. India would consistently side with the Palestinian position, including supporting Palestine's application for complete UN membership. It's also worth mentioning that India's non-relation policy with Israel was criticized quite heavily at different points in its trajectory. We saw, for example, India supported the Arab states in the 1967 war, in 1963 with the Yom Kippur War, unconditionally. And this was actually at times even detrimental to its own commercial interests. So, for example, in 1967, when the Suez Canal had to be shut down, India actually had at that point lost troops in the Sinai because India had UN peacekeeping troops that were killed during the operation in 1967. We also see how this position that India had was not reciprocated by the Arab countries when it came to conflicts with Pakistan, or when it came to even the war with China in 1962, where Arab countries tended to remain more neutral. And so what we are looking at is a very, very interesting position, whereas Israel at this point unconditionally supported India on all occasions, interestingly enough. But at the same time, we see a coalition of interests. We see, the Swatanta Party, we see the Jan Sangh, which is the predecessor of the BJP, the Janata Party, all coming together in an unorganized, we can argue, coalition of interests, criticizing the Congress stance and actually pushing for a thaw in relations with Israel. So what I want to suggest to you here is that India's position towards Israel and Palestine was always debated. It was never a one-sided issue in terms of its support or towards one side or the other. The big shift that happened actually came with the end of the Cold War and the accords between trying to establish peace and rapprochement between the Israelis and the Palestinians. And that was the point when India chose to keep its policy of distancing with Israel. It chose to actually bring this policy to an end. And this essentially happened because India felt that although it was in conversation with the PLO, with the Oslo peace accords starting, it could no longer justify not speaking to Israel if Arafat himself was speaking with Israel. Narasimha Rao, who was the prime minister at that point, was actually in close discussions with Arafat. And he actually proposed that India would open dialogue with Israel. And it's very interesting because as India opened the doors for normalization, Arafat actually vouched for India's position in a public statement. And so this was something that was happening very, very clearly. It's worth stating, like I said, Narasimha Rao was coming on the back of Rajiv Gandhi's leadership and premiership in India. And Rajiv Gandhi had also noticed the criticism that India was facing as he was trying to better economic ties with the United States in the 1980s. The US had placed various conditions on India, especially, for example, the US-based Anti-Defamation League had been criticizing Indian policy towards Israel, stating that it needed to and there's a lot of pressure coming on India from senators and congressmen in the United States. And so in a sense, Narasimha Rao finds himself in the early 1990s with this background that Rajiv Gandhi had already been experiencing in the 1980s in terms of this pressure to open up ties with Israel. But at the same time, he had a whole series of conditions that facilitated opening up ties with Israel. So the first thing, like I said, was the Oslo Peace Accords. But we also had a very clear balance of payment crisis in India, which led to economic liberalization, which opened doors for normalization of relations with Israel. With the decline of the Soviet Union, India also saw a very clear removal of a superpower that would support it in the United Nations, the UN Security Council. There was a very clear pivot towards the West. Remember the war in Afghanistan, the Afghan jihad had already wound down. Afghanistan was now in a very clear state of civil war. And at this point, the United States was no longer necessarily interested in Pakistan as a base. And so there was more space for a normalization or bettering of relations between India and the United States. We also see how India was trying to, with this economic liberalization, sort of have better ties with the United States and various other Bretton Woods institutions. I think it's very important to highlight the fact that with dissolution of the Soviet Union, India lost a key weapon supplier. And this is where Israel became very interesting and very important, because Israel, I'm not quite sure if you know, has a very large Russian immigrant population. So as the Soviet Union sort of no longer could supply weapons, Israel became not only a weapon supplier, but Israel became one of the few countries which had the expertise to actually provide parts and perform maintenance for Soviet-era weapons that India had acquired because of this Russian population that it had. And so we see this very clear set of conditions facilitating an easing of relations between India and Israel in the 1990s. And then, of course, we had two very, very pivotal events, which was 1998 and India's nuclear tests, Pokhran 2, and then in 1999, the Kargil War. And one of the things that we saw very, very clearly, Israel in this period of extreme pressure, where India was being boycotted, where weapon supplies were being stopped by various countries, Israel remained one of the key countries to continue supplying weapons and spare parts for India in very, very trying times for India. And this is something that both the Congress Party and the BJP, which was in power at that point, did not forget. And so what we are seeing now with Modi, and especially after 2014, is an evolution of that. Those ties. But what we are also noticing very clearly is much more public embrace of Israel with Modi. And again, there are various factors that facilitate this. So first of all, Modi has a one-party majority in India. And that gives him a great deal of political freedom, political leverage. He doesn't necessarily have to be beholden to domestic factors, domestic constituencies. He's not necessarily dependent on the Muslim vote bank, and that gives him a freer hand if we believe in the existence of this thing that is the Hindu-Muslim vote bank in India. And at the same time, this therefore facilitates a much more public engagement regarding Israel. We also have a very clear personal history between Modi and Israel. When Modi was still the chief minister of Gujarat, he actually visited Israel in 2006 to better trade ties between Gujarat and Israel, to better agricultural ties. And so, and this was, remember, 4 years after 2002 Godhra riots, where Modi was not being allowed to travel to a number of countries where he had been banned from entering. So the fact that he was traveling to Israel also sort of gives him personal ties to Israel. This is interesting because when he was actually elected into power, there were a lot of statements that came out of Israel, talking about these long-standing ties and how Modi is one of Israel's closest friends. It's also worth talking about his visits. In 2017, Modi became one of the prime ministers to visit Israel. He also broke protocol because in 2017, he did not stop in Ramallah, which is the capital of the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. This is something that is very, very different from previous ministerial visits by world leaders to Israel. We saw how in January 2018, Netanyahu reciprocated the visit, and this was a very clear shift from the very discreet ties that the Indian National Congress had maintained with the Israelis, but even also previous BJP governments who had not so openly embraced Israel when they were in office between 1998 and 2004. It is only the following year, in 2018, that Modi actually visits Ramallah and Mahmoud Abbas. It is, however, important to remember that although we've seen this very clear shift, we also see how Modi balanced his support for the Palestinian Authority as well as his increasing ties with Israel. So I'm running out of time, so I will go through this very, very quickly. First of all, already before he visited Israel in 2017, Modi invited Mahmoud Abbas to New Delhi in an attempt to ward off any kind of domestic criticism. We also see how progressively in December 2017, just before Netanyahu visited New Delhi, India supported the UN General Assembly vote against the United States President Donald Trump's unilateral declaration of Jerusalem as a capital for Israel. We also see in 2020, Modi increased India's contributions to the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian refugees. And so, there were very, very clear moves to also keep a balance that has shifted now in 2023. And I think I will just conclude by saying what has happened now that has changed Modi's position. And there's 4 things that I will outline very quickly. First, India has national elections coming up next year, and BJP has, for all intents and purposes, basically written off the Muslim vote, which gives it a free hand to essentially take a position with Israel, which does not necessarily take into account the concerns of the Indian Muslim population. We also know that India has long had a problem with terrorist attacks, specifically Islamist militants operating from Pakistan, as well as transnational Islamist terrorism. And therefore, this position regarding Hamas is basically playing into its own domestic constituency, sending a very clear tacit message to Islamabad to take a more approach to terrorism, and is also going to support India's very clear positions of aggression when it comes to kinetic counterterrorism, whether we're looking at Uri or Pulwama, or even what we have seen recently with the Canadians accusing India of assassinating a Punjabi militant in Canada. We're also looking at an ideological link where India's Hindu chauvinists see Israel very much in the way they imagine India, an ethno-nationalist majoritarian state, facing this existential threat of Islamist terrorism. And so there's that linkage there. Number three, it's also important to realize that India has taken note that a number of Arab states, from Egypt to Saudi Arabia, have not actually offered full support for Hamas. They're calling for a cessation of hostilities. They're calling for, they're condemning Israeli actions. But India is essentially going to take its cues in terms of diplomacy and its position with its allies in the Middle East. And finally, we can also see how India is essentially very clearly indicating to the United States that it is willing to support a critical US ally. And this is very, very important given its very, very lukewarm stance regarding the Russian war in Ukraine. So it's a very important messaging tactic at this point to the United States. So what we are seeing in conclusion is a very, very clear shift by Modi, which suggests a proximity to Israel that has not been seen so publicly before, and that will promise to continue unless we see a change in government next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rashmi, for contribution to the debate. Discussions about the war between Israel and Palestine are crucial for finding the best solution for the conflict, and we are grateful for your participation. Now, we will hear about Bruno Pedrosa. He has a master's degree in international security and defense for Brazil War College, ESG, and a bachelor degree in international security from the Federal Fluminense University, UFF. He currently works as security and open source intelligence analyst. Bruno will speak about challenges and opportunity for joint action by BRICS in addressing current conflicts. Bruno, you can speak right now.
Thank you very much, everyone. Good evening, and I have a pleasure to be in the presence of so intelligent and insightful expert here. So I'd like to begin my presentation saying that we have to keep in mind that the BRICS bloc was originated and why it was originated. The BRICS were not created to be a political bloc, let alone a major security actor in the global arena. The BRICS were created as an acronym from the Goldman Sachs, which was a name to new investments, and they were supposed to be the next bigger economies in the near future. So the BRICS were not created as a political actor. But throughout the years, all the leaderships of their members, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and in the future, South Africa, see this as an opportunity to put their agenda forward as an alternative to the Western modeled international order. So the BRICS, as I a new way of forming a global and global reach and political actor, started to use its own order, which was created by the United States and the Allies after the World War II, to enhance their presence and their action in all the major matters in the international relations. So, using multilateralism and upholding international law and reforms, the BRICS started to change the political arena and change our perception to what is possible to be done and what is possible to act as in the international relations. So the BRICS, after its start, it was not taken as serious as they wanted to be, especially by the Western powers and even some BRICS members, such as China, which uh, took some space from BRICS due to its fear to be attached so much to actors so different from itself. So the BRICS was not a major actor in the global arena in the first years. Um, that's because there are different culturally, diplomatically, and other type of in all these social aspects. There are not countries which people and the other political analysts see as inherent allies or inherent partners. So the BRICS was very in the fringe of the international relations and very fringe of the major debate about major actors and global powers. BRICS was treated as only a mess by some analysts or fraud or even non-existent entity, since there is no type of institution, there's no type of physical building, and no type of formal alliance among those members. But since 2014, BRICS started a movement of creating and institutionalizing, which resulted in the New Development Bank created in 2014. And since then, the BRICS started to thicken uh, its presence in the international relations. But everything changed after coronavirus and the Ukrainian war in Ukraine, I would say. So because all the countries, because after the shock of the Russian invasion in Ukraine, the West, led by the United States, started immediate actions, which was like sanctioning Russia and trying to isolate Russia from the international institutions and other international arrangements, as the SWIFT Bank and the types of commerce. A lot of companies left Russia, which was part of a plan of isolating Russia and constraining Russia to back from its aggressive actions towards Ukraine. But it was seen that even though some countries condemned, the majority of countries condemned formally the actions of Russia, we've seen that except the West, not all of our countries agreed to sanction Russia, and not all countries partook the actions that the West um, done regarding to Russia. So something changed, and all the countries was seen like they have an alternative. So what's alternative is that we have to keep in mind that when the Second World War was over, there's only two major centers of power, which was the United States and the Soviet Union. So uh, During this period, countries were basically pro-United States and or against it. I mean, basically, I know we had the non-aligned movement, but the Cold War period was basically based on in this dynamic of being pro United States or pro USSR. You didn't have any type of choice. And then after the collapse of Soviet Union in the post Cold War period, you just couldn't be against the United States. The United States was considered as the lone superpower, unipolar moment, and other type of these labels that were posed in this period. So the United States was the only power, global power, and there's no doubt about it. But after the 2008 financial crisis, and especially after the Ukraine war, we see that United States is only one of the many options we have today as a political arrangement. So after World War II was two options, after the Cold War was one option, and then we have many options, which create a new type of arena that BRICS can see as an opportunity to enhance the power, since India, Russia, China, Brazil, and South Africa are seen one of the major powers in their own regions. So they see this opportunity to put forward their agenda. And one thing that BRICS can is very different from other rising powers, that they don't want to destroy the current order that we have today. They have benefits from it. So China grew up economically using this structure. Brazil using the UN Security Council to speak its voice. India uses the UN to use as a political tool. So there is no intention from BRICS to destroy this order, but they want to reform it. So, and reform it, what? They want to reform it, the Western centralized type of norms and type of institutions we have today. So it's not very rare to see BRICS contesting some norms regarding to security, and they want to bring new visions to what to do and how to do it. So after the Second World War II, we had Europe and Japan as rising powers in the time, but they were very westernized countries, and they didn't wanted to change the how can I say it? The content and the essence of some orders. But when non-Western countries rise, they bring new ideas, new approach, and new perspectives of the world, and they want to create a world more representative for them, since they are big economies and big armies, big military forces, and major powers in their own regions. And we can see the BRICS trying to be more incisive and assertive in the security field of international relations in two aspects. They want to reform it, and they want to have a bigger role in the security matters, the major security matters. But since they are very different countries with a very different perspective and very different type of governing, the differences between among their approach are great. So we cannot discard it. And I'm here to say to talk about the opportunities and the challenges they have. So I will say examples using the Syria and Libya conflicts. One from the beginning of year 2010 and the others from 2011 to 2012. Okay, Syria, regarding to Libya, the United States, France, and Great Britain put forward the responsibility to protect, which was regarded in the first sight as a tool to protect civilians, but in reality, it was used to enhance the Western powers and Western powers' achievement and basically destroyed the Libyan government, creating a social crisis in the area, and was very criticized by many nations. So when this R2P, responsibility to protect motion, was discussed in UN, uh, China China and Russia abstained themselves, but South Africa, China, Russia, and India abstained themselves, but South Africa was in favor of it. And later, it tried to criticize the motion, saying that it was a mistake, and even saying that the Western powers took advantage of the situation to put their own agenda and try to change the regime. So this the four BRICS try to mediate in these situations, and and they try to propose new ways of actions. Brazil trying to propose their responsibility while protecting. The South Africa agreed to the R2P, but then criticized it. Russia said no, and China said no. But so we can see that the BRICS stance regarding to security is at the maximum tops lose, because there's no type of formal and united position to take regarding to these matters. So we can see a different position even inside the BRICS. So we have the Brazil, India, South Africa, which is more balanced and flexible attitude regarding to the human crisis and human uh, conditions in countries uh, in countries with conflicts, since they are democracies and they want to uh, put themselves as examples in their areas. And while you have Russia and China, which are very uh, are not satisfied with this type of attitude from the United Nations, and normally they're against, using their veto power to oppose it, since they're countries with a lot of allegations of human rights violation of the countries, and they not to be another target for the Western powers and international community to be invaded in favor of this matter. So in regarding to Syria, when the conflict was started, the Western powers wanted to impose sanctions on the regime to suffocate him, but when the BRICS countries reminded themselves of the consequences of the R2P measures took in Syria, they 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 try to try to act differently. So South Africa and India abstained themselves, and Russia and China were against it. And in the other motion from the Security Council to Assad step down, the India and South Africa were in favor, but Russia and China were against. So we have to see that there's a lot of challenge regarding to security matters for the BRICS, since they are not united in decisions and not united in what to do. They We can summarize the situation as we all agree something's wrong, but we don't know how to fix it as a block. They have like their own doctrine to how to act regarding to this type of situations. But as a bloc, they are not an alliance as people pretend they are, say they are, or or think they are. So regarding to the with this said, regarding to the current conflicts in Ukraine and in Israel in Gaza, we can say that BRICS are not so comfortable as a bloc to work towards these conflicts because first, in the Ukraine and Russia conflict, we have a member of the bloc which is directly involved in this conflict. So BRICS cannot explicitly be in favor of any kind of intervention from Western powers in the Ukraine area. We have seen that China is supporting Russia in the backstage, and other countries such as Brazil and India are trying to be not, I would say neutral, but they want to not to take a side in this situation, to be better mediators and better uh, peace brokers in this situation. So and they don't want to burn bridges with Russia and China, which are the one of the founding members of BRICS. Which without them, the bloc would be without any sense and will not be working anymore. And a powerhouse, economic powerhouse of China, and the military powers of Russia with outside the bloc will be a great loss for the bloc as a whole. And this agenda to de-westernize the political order would be very hindered. And regarding to the Palestine and Israel conflict, it's very difficult to say because everything is very new right now. But we're seeing that the countries are again, BRICS are not like united and not coherent in their position to act towards the conflict, since we see the Russia and China in a more not taking not taking so much position in this situation. We see India as a supporter of Israel, and we see Brazil as a trying to be a mediator between the two. So the prospects for BRICS uh, to be a unified actor in security scenarios is very far from reality. I think there are more structural problems and then how can I say conjectural ones. So there are opportunities to deal with security issues by the BRICS is more like in the direction of trying to change how the actual how the current order works than the how it works. So they want to change it, but they don't know how as a block. And the challenges to enhance this type of agenda is because the BRICS countries are very different from each other. They have even conflicts among each other. Even though China, Russia, and India can sit together in security issues in the Shanghai Cooperation Organizations, they don't know how to do it as a bloc in the major conflicts and how to put it in as a unified front against or as a position to the Western powers.
Thank you,
very much.
Bruno. It seems like we have a question for you, and it's from Emilio Mendonça, and says, how far reforming isn't destroying the global order?
So reform is not destroying, since the essence of the order today is for a liberal one. So BRICS, they want to see to be respected as equal in the jurisdiction. They want to be treated as equal, which in the practice is not what happening today. So they want to be the voice spoken and to be listened as well. And so reforming the order is not to destroy it, since it's be to adequate the spaces and how the institution works to the new balance of power we have today, and not to only be blind to the how can I say, to deficiencies the structure today has in favor of the powers which created, which was the United States, Great Britain, and France, and which the order is based on principles stemmed from their philosophy. I mean, liberalism is from a Western philosophy, is not like a Chinese or Russian one. So they want to reform it, not to, and they are afraid as well, especially China, to create destabilization in during this process. So they don't want to destroy it as a create something new, because China is taking advantage of this, being a permanent member of the Security Council as Russia, and it's taking benefits in the all the liberal structure to the trade and economy. So they want to reform it to be, how can I say, equivalent to their own power today, and not to be the country they were in the after the Second World War II, the Second World War. So yeah, I don't see as I don't know if I couldn't answer your question. But I don't see the reforming as a uh, destruction, because as in a house, you when you reform it, you paint the walls with another color, you move your furniture from another place, but the space of the rooms, the space of the kitchen, the space and the space of the house in the general sense is remains the same. So yeah, I don't see as a like a destruction, but reform. I don't know if I could make myself clear. I hope so.
Thank you for your collaboration. You made yourself clear. Now we have Colonel Manoj Singh, who is an honorary director of research at the Forum of Global Studies, FGS, in the New Delhi. He's an alumnus of the Rashtriya Military School, Ajmer, and graduated from the National Defense Academy, NDA, in the Indian Military Academy. His expertise focuses on security and defense issues, particularly in the field of information warfare. You can start your speech right now, Dr. Colonel Manoj.
Thank you, Esther. Good evening and good morning to people in India. And thank you, Esther, for calling me, and thanks to your organization for organizing such a beautiful, insightful event. Okay, I'm going to talk about India's multipolarity rhetoric with respect to BRICS. The major challenge before India is to choose between China-centric or West-centric world order, or to balance between both the two. In fact, in the recent BRICS summit, which was held in South Africa, it provided a platform for cooperation dialogue and wherein we saw expansion of the BRICS to BRICS Plus, wherein 6 more new countries joined. And what was very surprising was omission of Indonesia from that list. Whatever reasons, but getting these countries in the folds of BRICS, we have now 6 out of 10 world's top oil producers in our folds. That is, top 6 oil producers have come to the folds of BRICS. And it is now providing a great opportunity for the group to influence global energy and its supplies. So coming to that, it provides opportunities for diversity and in their partnerships, notably in terms of enabling technology transfer, advancing space research, and strengthening of the new development bank, which is already in existence. What are the reasons for this BRICS expansion? Whereas almost 40 odd countries had given their interest into this expansion. First is China was pushing it hard for this expansion because it needed enhanced global influence. And while Brazil and South Africa and India were not pushing it, but they were on these, they were neutral towards this, and they wanted these countries to join as observer countries. Nevertheless, this expansion has happened, and it has happened with everybody's consent. And the other reason is wider engagement for common cause, like amongst the like-minded nations. And especially when Indian Prime Minister said this platform is a very potent platform for the global South. And that's how it is going to be, and with more countries coming into this fold. Also, there were limited options in other groupings. If you see the other groupings, they were dominated by the West, and there were limited opportunities for projection of your influence. Then other reasons are accessing of core technologies. All these nations, those who wanted to join and have joined, they want to have access to the core technologies to power their future growth. Also securing advanced military hardware for their enhanced security. And while China and Russia, they are major suppliers of these hardwares, military hardware, so this would definitely benefit them. Anti-Western sentiment was one more reason cited, and also fostering global South unity, as was mentioned by the earlier 2 speakers as well. Having the upper hand in trade negotiations with Europe and United States, joining this grouping, BRICS grouping, will give them that upper hand for trade negotiations. Securing access to essential commodities like food, energy, metals, fertilizers from the new Russia-China bloc. Because all these countries, if you see, are rich in all these resources. Negotiating better terms to restructure the debt. If you see the debt conditions, the conditionalities which are offered by World Bank or IMF, they are very harsh. Whereas NDB gives the debts in a very simplified manner. So it is conducive to the growth of these countries. Especially if you see in these new groupings, there are very rich countries which have joined: Saudi Arabia, UAE, and similarly there are some countries which needed desperate need of funds like Argentina. So it is going to be mutually beneficial to the complete grouping per se. And if you see recently, in last about 1 decade, less than a decade, BRICS has taken on a global geopolitical character. It is aiming to challenge the current world order. And that is how the US feels that BRICS is emerging fast as challenging to the unilateral world order, which is dominated by the Western powers. Let's now discuss some prospects and pitfalls confronting India's perspective. So the first thing is that BRICS remains an intergovernmental coalition. It is guided by each member's national strategy. It is both a source of opportunity and it also gives challenges as the group navigates its members' convergent and divergent interests. All members are not convergent on all issues. So there are many divergent interests also. So both these things create opportunities as well as challenges. Despite major powers such as China and Russia, they seek to leverage their partnership with global South countries to advance their own agendas. Despite that, BRICS members retain their agency and ability to advance their interests through negotiations. Currently, the BRICS operates in tandem with other mini-lateral groupings. For example, we have India, Brazil, and South Africa. All are members of G20, and they're also member of this BRICS. But whether these members can rely on the G20 to advance reforms of major international financial institutions, including the World Bank and International Monetary Fund, that BRICS has been calling for. Other practical challenges the group is facing, it has not clarified its expansion strategy. It should address the criteria for adding new potential members. Otherwise, this open-ended kind of thing will create problems because there are many applicants. As I told, more than 40 countries are aspiring to be part of BRICS. Also, adding more countries and each having equal rights, it will create challenges in maintaining consensus and reaching any decisions. So that has also to be looked into. It also needs to, for new BRICS institutions, such as new BRICS Secretariat will be required. As you have more nations coming into the folds, you will require more institutionalized institutions coming up. Yet to define its objectives. BRICS is yet to define its objectives vis-a-vis non-member global South countries as to how they are going to tackle, as they're saying, their platform for the global South. How are they going to engage them? So that's an important thing, and they must clarify that. It is also not yet clear what path BRICS member will take to advance multilateral organization reforms, that reforms that we have been talking about. Let's now talk about the India's challenges in its engagements with BRICS. As is evident, balancing rival interests, India has to be very tactful in balancing the rival interest. India has to balance its relation with China, Russia, which are increasingly seen as strategic rivals of the West, whereas India has also been collaborating with the Western countries equally. This also poses Chinese threat to India security, because India has been facing problems with China on its border, maritime security, and it has trade imbalances, technology competitions, and other issues with respect to human rights. Also, Russia's involvement in the Ukraine war and its alignment with China is raising concerns in India as to what its traditional long-term partners, reliability and credibility. We are talking of Russia now. With China going very close to Russia, India's concerns are becoming louder. Protecting and practicing and advocating democratic principles. India has to deal with Western normative expectations without compromising its autonomy or sovereignty. Here we are engaging all types of, not only democracies, but other regimes as well in this larger BRICS plus grouping. So one has to see how we are going to tread this path, and this path has to be treaded very cautiously. India also does not want to antagonize or alienate these countries of the global South who may see merit in China's or Russia's effort at expanding its membership or influence of non-Western forums such as BRICS or SCO. India has to be pragmatic and thus has to have a principled foreign policy, which was very nicely elucidated by Dr. Rashmi saying earlier. Managing bilateral differences. India has unresolved border disputes and strategic rivalry with China and Pakistan, which does affect the relations with BRICS. India also has divergent views from Russia on issues such as Afghanistan, Iran, and Indo-Pacific. India has to manage these bilateral differences while pursuing multilateral cooperation within BRICS. India's persistent trade deficit to China is a thing of worry, as I have mentioned earlier, and this trade imbalance could strain India's economic interests within BRICS and affect its economic stability. Balancing China's dominance within the BRICS itself is very important, because if you see, China is even dominating the Russian participation. It is the largest and the most influential member of the BRICS, with its economic, military, diplomatic clout surpassing that of all other 4 nations. India has to balance its interests and values with its needs to cooperate with China on common issues within the BRICS framework. Then there are geopolitical rivalries. India's complex geopolitical relationship with some BRICS members, China and Russia are one, pose challenges to maintaining a united front on various global issues. India cannot remain united on all issues with these 2 countries. Disagreements on regional conflicts and security matters could hinder effective cooperation. Then there are developmental disparities. Just to understand, BRICS includes 2 developed countries, that is China and Russia, and emerging economies like India and South Africa and Brazil. Bridging the development gap among the member countries to ensure equitable benefits from cooperation remains a significant challenge. Coordination on multilateral platforms. While BRICS aims to reform global governance institutions, including United Nations and IMF, member countries often have different priorities and approaches. Varied security concerns. BRICS members, each one have different diverse security concerns, ranging from terrorism and regional conflicts to cyber threats. Aligning these concerns and coordinating joint security initiatives requires careful negotiation. And then there is shifting global alliances. As geopolitical dynamics evolve, some BRIC members may seek closer ties with countries or organizations outside the group. This has to be balanced. Then let's see what are the possible areas of cooperation within the BRICS. BRICS need to shed the centrality from China and create a better internal balance. As I mentioned earlier, reinforced by the urgent need for diversification. To remain relevant over the next decades, each of the members must make realistic assessment of the opportunities and inherent limitations. The grouping also explore the BRIC plus cooperation at more levels and in a wider scope to increase BRIC countries' representation and influence to make better contribution to the world peace and development. Upholding universal security. Sorry. Seeking one's security at the expense of others will only create new tensions and risks. It is important, therefore, to respect and guarantee the security of every country, every member country, replace confrontation with dialogue and partnership, and promote building of balanced, effective, and sustainable regional security infrastructure and architecture. It is also equally important to strengthen political mutual trust and security cooperation, maintain communication and coordination on major international and regional issues, and also accommodate each other's interests. Securing economic interest. BRIC countries should be contributors of common development. As we have talked earlier, facing the rising tide of deglobalization and increase of unilateral sanctions, BRICS countries should enhance mutually beneficial cooperation in supply chains, energy, food, and financial resilience. And it will also be useful for BRICS to develop an institutional research wing along the lines of OECD. Also, public health governance, BRICS countries should fully leverage their respective strengths and jointly promote the development of global health governance in favor of developing countries. Thus, India's vision of One Earth, One Health contributes to this multilateral cooperation. Countries should also make good use of BRICS Vaccine Research and Development Center. A global governance philosophy is also emerging one after another. Coping with these challenges require coordination among global actions. Safeguarding international system is also essential, so that international affairs have participation by all. So these were little, facts which were concerning India and the BRICS and other countries as well. Coming to the conflict which is happening, which has been talked about earlier, Israel-Hamas conflict. First of all, we'll talk about the security situation there, talking about these BRICS countries and the new entrants. After the new entrants have come, the favor has gone towards the Palestinian side. If you see, whereas India has been always maintaining a very balanced approach, while other nations like Russia and China and Iran, they have already come in favor of Palestinians. While India has been denouncing the terrorist activities of Hamas, it is always supporting the Palestinian human rights, while supporting the stand of Israel of two-state solution, which is not acceptable to Palestinians, which is quite unfortunate. And thus this conflict, which is over 100 years old, remains unresolved, and it is sort of frozen conflict now. Just understand what has happened in Russia-Ukraine war. That issue has also remained unresolved, and it is not likely to have any solution in the future. And what is happening in the result? It will be a frozen conflict which will remain, and it will remain open for a long time. Whereas Russia has totally crushed Ukraine, but it has also suffered large casualties, and has, because of this war, it has also got a hit economically. So coming to this Palestinian issues, for Israel, this is an existential threat. It cannot but remove this threat of Hamas, but it has to accommodate the Arabs and Palestinians. But after this attack on 7th of October, they need redemption, and that is exactly what is Israel doing as of now. And they are also taking it as an opportunity. Now that they have entered Gaza, they want to, exploit it to the best. It is unfortunate. You'll be surprised to know that it is unfortunate that the kind of explosive that has been bombarded Gaza, it is, in terms of TNT, it is even more than the Nagasaki, Hiroshima nuclear bomb, that effect, whatever it would have created, it is more than that. I believe there are estimates which say 300,000 tons of explosives have been thrown onto Gaza, which is quite unfortunate. So, but the problem with Israel is very real. The problem is of hostages. It has become, because of the hostage crisis, it has become a very complex issue. And just see the stand. Even Iranian president spoke to Indian Prime Minister 3 days back and appealed to India to negotiate for a ceasefire. While India has been talking to Israel, Indian Prime Minister has also spoken to Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. Indians have also been in contact with Russia and also with the Ukrainian side, but unfortunately, there is no solution which is coming out so fast in such complex situations. Whereas if you see China, there were reports only yesterday that they have removed Israel from their official maps. The maps issued by Baidu's and Alibaba's in China do not show any country as Israel in that region. It is with what purpose only Chinese can answer. But when their foreign ministry was asked, they say they have normal relations with Israel, and the maps, which are official maps of China, have depicted all the countries as they are supposed to be. Okay, coming to the last part, how BRICS can help out in this security situation. As brought out by my previous scholar, he had mentioned that consensus amongst the BRICS countries is hard to come by. So this security cooperation is very unlikely. And I also endorse that thought. And here I finish with my small presentation and lecture. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Thank you, Colonel Singh, for clarifying the India position within BRICS international security landscape. We don't have any questions for you today, so thank you for your presentation. Last but not least, Dr. Sakin Kumar, who is an assistant professor of computer science at the Cluster Innovation Center, University of Delhi. He also serves as an executive officer of the University of Delhi Foundation and holds a PhD in computer science. His primary focus is on developing technological solutions to address societal issues through the application of artificial intelligence. Dr. Sakin Kumar will address about artificial intelligence for diplomacy, peace, and military cooperation. Thank you for your presence, Sakin Kumar, especially consider that it is now 3 a.m. in your city. You can start whenever you are.
Thank you, Esther. Thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, distinguished panelists and esteemed guests, thank you very much for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to share my views on this crucial discussion on diplomacy for peace and military cooperation. So I will be coming from the technical background and specifically from artificial intelligence and digital transformation. It has huge opportunities and challenges in international relations. So I'll be talking about transformative impact and opportunities of digital transformation and artificial intelligence in international relations, diplomacy, and military cooperation. Before we go ahead, we need to understand what is digital transformation. Digital transformation, specifically in BRICS group, is very important because we are emerging economies, we are developing countries, and we aspire to become developed countries. And in that journey, we need to be very technological savvy. We need to develop tools, softwares, so that we can utilize them for the benefit of our citizens, for the benefit of institutions, and we can increase our productivity as a country as well as a bloc in BRICS. So digital transformation actually plays an important and very crucial role in shaping the landscape of international relations and peace. It has potential to influence diplomatic efforts, conflict resolution, and global cooperation in several ways. So digital technology enhances communications between nations, diplomats, institutions of international relations, international organizations, and instantaneous communication through email, video conferencing, and social media platforms allows for the real-time dialogue, which is very important at present time, as we are also witnessing in Ukraine and Russian war, and also in Middle East situation. So it also helps in fostering better understanding and collaboration. Digital platforms facilitate the exchange of information and data analysis, aiding in the assessment of global trends and the potential threats. And global trends we can actually assess through the social media data or the web platforms data being generated at the real time. Access to accurate and timely information is essential for informed decision making in governance issues, governance policies, and specifically in diplomacy and conflict resolution. At present, we are witnessing the transformation and adoption of artificial intelligence in each and every domain, specifically the product and services of digital nature we are utilizing. Similarly, governments are also adopting this technology to benefit and to efficiently deliver citizen-centric services to its to the people in the society. So advanced technologies such as artificial intelligence, data analytics, machine learning, big data analytics can be employed to identify early warning signs of conflicts. Predictive modeling and the analysis approach based on social media data can also help in anticipation and addressing of potential sources of tension before they escalate. And this will be a huge win for the stakeholders involved in such situations. We can also have virtual collaborations tools and real-time analytics approach in diplomacy and information sharing, and in which platforms can enable our diplomats, NGOs, and international organizations to work together seamlessly, transcending geographical boundaries in our world. This interconnectedness promotes dialogue and cooperation on global challenges, fostering a sense of shared responsibility. There are digital technologies and products sharing also, which can help BRICS countries as well as other countries also. For example, if we take case of India, which is one of the major country in BRICS, then we have potential digital technologies based softwares and tools which are actually helping government of India and India as a country to help financial inclusion, such as United Payment Interface, UPI, and Aadhaar based citizen information systems. So together, India, which has projected these two tools, software tools, as a success story in digitalization. We also recently developed CoWIN platform, which is world appreciated widely for information management of the COVID-19 affected persons and the number of doses or the number of vaccinations they have received. And you can access it anywhere internationally. So these type of things can also come into picture in promoting peace in BRICS countries as well as in other countries where any country would like to join the bloc, and we can offer these type of product and services and help to those countries. In an increasing complex and interconnected world, the role of AI in shaping international relations and security cannot be overstated. As we dwell into this multifaceted impact of artificial intelligence in international relations, we need to recognize a profound impact of AI on global affairs. Artificial intelligence has rapidly transformed not only the way nations approaches military capabilities, but also how we engage in diplomacy for peace and cooperation. In today's digital age, effective use of artificial intelligence is paramount for both defense and diplomacy. And it is a powerful tool that can be harnessed to promote stability, deter aggression, and the foster cooperation among nations. One of the primary contributions of AI in diplomacy lies in its ability to analyze vast amount of data with the help of big data analytics to identify potential sources of conflict. By processing information from diverse sources, which that information can be structured information and unstructured information obtained from multiple sources such as social media, satellite imagery, news reports. Artificial intelligence algorithms can discern patterns and trends indicative of emerging tensions. For instance, in context of border disputes and geopolitical tensions, artificial intelligence-driven systems can analyze and provide early warnings, enabling diplomats to take preventive measures and helping countries in resolving the conflict. Artificial intelligence predictive analytics capabilities offer diplomats valuable tools for crisis management. Machine learning algorithms, which is one of the subset of artificial intelligence domain, can assess historical data, geopolitical factors, and economic indicators to predict potential crises. This foresight allows nations to prepare strategically, engage in primitive diplomatic initiatives, and develop collaborative approaches to address impending challenges. The ability to foresee crises can be instrumental in preventing conflicts and fostering a climate of stability. Artificial intelligence can also be one of the major tools to facilitate joint military exercises and simulations, providing a platform for nations to enhance interoperability and cooperation. Military forces can employ AI-driven simulations to practice coordinated responses to various scenarios, improving communication and coordination. For instance, NATO has integrated artificial intelligence-based simulations into its training programs, allowing member nations to strengthen their collective defense capabilities through realistic virtual scenarios. The development of autonomous military systems such as drones and unmanned vehicles presents opportunities for collaborative defense efforts. And AI-enabled autonomous systems can be deployed for surveillance, reconnaissance, and strategic operations, reducing the need for direct human involvement in high-risk situations, where most of the times we lose precious human life. Collaborative projects like European Defence Fund aim to leverage artificial intelligence in development of autonomous defense technologies, fostering joint capabilities among participating nations. So these things can be taken care of by BRICS bloc also, as we are also having 1 or 2 members which are major spender on the defense sector, and also one of the major developer in the defense sector technologies. United Nations has increasingly turned to artificial intelligence technologies to support conflict resolution efforts. The UN partnership with tech companies to develop artificial intelligence tools for analyzing conflict data and analyzing potential peacekeeping strategies exemplify the integration of technology into diplomatic initiatives. UN is also utilizing artificial intelligence for achieving sustainable development goals, which we have the target of 2030. So AI-driven analysis enhances the United Nations ability to understand complex conflict, identify root causes, and proposes effective solutions in scientific and rational manner. So in spite of huge benefits of artificial intelligence, as we have discussed before, there are some challenges and ethical considerations also posed by artificial intelligence. While artificial intelligence offers unprecedented opportunities for diplomatic efforts and military cooperation, it also presents challenges and ethical considerations. Issues such as data privacy, bias in artificial intelligence algorithms, and potential for weaponization of autonomous systems raises concern. As nations navigate the integration of AI into diplomatic and military strategies, it is crucial to establish ethical frameworks and international agreements to govern the responsible use of artificial intelligence and its associated technologies into international relations, into conflict zones, into different type of challenging and warlike situations. The future of artificial intelligence in diplomacy holds immense promise, with ongoing research and development pushing the boundaries of what is possible. Collaborative efforts to address global challenges such as climate change, cyber threat, and public health crisis will likely rely on artificial intelligence driven systems, and they will also help us in developing, curating targeted policies for regions, for different sections of society, countries as a whole. So as nations continue to explore the potential of artificial intelligence for peace and military cooperation, the international community must actively engage in dialogue to establish norms and guidelines that ensure the responsible and ethical use of these technologies. Trust is actually the foundational element in international relations. Artificial intelligence technologies can contribute to building trust among nations by promoting transparency in diplomatic processes. Blockchain coupled with artificial intelligence can ensure the integrity and traceability of the diplomatic communications and agreement. This transparency can reduce the likelihood of misunderstandings, miscalculations, and the manipulation of information that could lead to conflict. For example, Estonia, known for its advanced digital society, has explored the use of blockchain in its e-governance and diplomatic initiatives. Blockchain ensures the security and transparency of digital communications, fostering trust between nations engaged in diplomatic exchanges and the institutions. This approach can serve as a model for other countries and the BRICS group seeking to enhance the verifiability of their diplomatic engagements. Digital transformation and artificial intelligence can play a significant role in promoting peace and enhancing cooperation among BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa in various ways. As we discussed that AI can be used to analyze vast amount of diplomatic data, news, and social media, and the information coming from different channels to identify potential areas of conflict and suggest diplomatic strategies for conflict resolution. AI-driven predictive analytics can help in understanding geopolitical trends and anticipating diplomatic challenges and countering them, taking decisions in real time based on authentic, accurate, and scientific information processing taking place in real time. Given the increasing importance of cybersecurity in international relations, BRICS nations can collaborate on AI-driven cybersecurity initiatives. AI can be employed to detect and respond to cyber threats, share threats, intelligence, and develop common cybersecurity norms and protocols. AI technologies can boost economic development by enhancing productivity, automating processes, and driving innovation. Collaborative efforts among BRICS nations to share AI expertise, promote research and development, and establish common standards can contribute to sustainable economic growth. Healthcare and pandemic response. Artificial intelligence can aid in healthcare research, drug discovery, pandemic response efforts, and which is going to be very necessary in coming future. So BRICS nation can collaborate on using artificial intelligence in associated technologies, big data analytics, machine learning, blockchain for predictive modeling of disease outbreaks, analyzing healthcare data, developing solutions, sharing those solutions among these countries, developing innovative product for the public health challenges so that we are well prepared in terms of any pandemic happening in the future. Artificial intelligence powered education platforms can also facilitate skill development, which is one of the very important and crucial need for emerging economies in BRICS, because we are one of the younger nations in around the world, and we need to provide skill-oriented direction to our youth so that it can enhance its productivity and it can contribute in the nation development. So knowledge sharing among BRICS nations is important. Collaborative efforts in developing and sharing AI-driven educational tools can contribute to build a skilled workforce for the future and take this block to one of the major global platform, and people will be very people will feel very proud, and it will be beneficial for other countries to join the group, and it will enhance its influence around the world. AI can assist in predicting and managing the impact of natural disasters also. So BRICS nations can collaborate on using artificial intelligence for early warning systems, disaster response planning, and resource allocation during crisis. AI-driven language translation, sentiment analysis can enhance cross-cultural communication among BRICS nations. This can reduce language barriers and improve the understanding, fostering stronger diplomatic ties and even stronger citizen-to-citizen ties and collaborations. Artificial intelligence can be employed for monitoring and managing environmental issues such as deforestation, climate change, and the pollution. Collaborative efforts can involve sharing AI-powered tool and data for environmental conservation and sustainable development, depending on the climatic situations if they are same. AI can play major role in optimizing infrastructure development and management. BRICS nations can collaborate on using artificial intelligence for smart city planning, transportation optimization, and infrastructure resilience, contributing to sustainable urban development and sustainable communities, which is one of the goal of sustainable development goal as decided by United Nations. Collaborative efforts can also be taken to establish common standards and regulations for data security and privacy in the age of artificial intelligence. This can enhance trust among BRICS nations and facilitate among BRICS nations and facilitate the responsible and ethical use of artificial intelligence. By leveraging artificial intelligence in these areas, BRICS nations have the opportunity to strengthen cooperation, address shared challenges, and build a foundation for sustainable development and peace in global arena. Open dialogue, information sharing, and collaborative research can further enhance the positive impact of artificial intelligence and collective goals of BRICS nations. So artificial intelligence is reshaping the landscape of diplomacy, offering unprecedented opportunities for conflict prevention, resolution, and collaborative security efforts. As a nation and as a member of BRICS countries, we need to embrace artificial intelligence technologies in diplomatic and military endeavors, provided ethical considerations and associated rules and regulations are also researched upon in the international governance framework. Responsible artificial intelligence development, digital transformation, deployment with guided ethical principles will be crucial for BRICS to realizing the full potential of artificial intelligence in promoting global peace, stability, military cooperations in 21st century. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Thank you, Dr. Kumar. Your lecture was very insightful. I did not have idea that artificial intelligence was capable of mitigating conflicts, and I thank you for your lecture today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all for being present in this final panel of the 7th BRICS Conference. All four guests were excellent in exploring the role of BRICS countries' international security. I would like to express gratitude once again to our sponsors, Ibra China and Miguel Neto Advocacia, and our partners, LIDE China, SABYA, and FGS. This event was held by the Faculty of Law at the International University of São Paulo. Good morning, good evening, and good night, regardless of the time you are watching this broadcast. And thank you for your presence today.
Thank you very much, Esther.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.